Hey, it's Ari, just back from the ACM Aerospace Alley Tradeshow, celebrating the worldwide unique cluster of aerospace manufacturers we have right here in Connecticut. I had the opportunity to talk to many friends, new and old, about what's going on in their business, what's going on around manufacturing Connecticut, and at the trade show itself. I know you're going to enjoy these compilation episodes. A quick interruption to remind you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better. Hey, it's Ari. I'm excited to have Mark Auletta here, COO of Bauer. Mark, thanks so much for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me, Ari.
Nice to be on another show with you again. You know, we did the manufacturer CT new brand announcement. I guess we were discussing this about 2 years ago.
That's right.
Well, great to have you back on, or great to be on with you again online.
Thanks.
You know, Mark, I want to start off with the standard Made in America 2 questions. What do you make and why do you make it?
Right. So we design and manufacture aircraft component test equipment that we sell to airlines, overhaul shops, OEMs, and the military worldwide. So we keep planes flying safely. And we've done that for, the company's been around 105 years, but for a good 75 years, we've been in aerospace.
So, and why, what sort of drove you guys to be in this space? Like, what's the passion behind it? You know, why this?
Yeah, so Bauer actually started off as an electrical contracting firm in Hartford back in 1916. We started making commercial hot water heaters, and then like in the 1950s, we took on a project for Pratt Whitney, making a temperature simulator. We've been in the aircraft industry ever since. But
what's a temperature simulator?
You know, it tests various components. So all different parts, components on an aircraft have to be tested for flow, pressure, temperature, even altitude. So those are particular test stands that test those types of components.
And you guys, so you've probably gone beyond just the products you were doing in the 1950s, it sounds like. We got simulators, a lot of high-tech stuff. What are you guys making now? Like, what are some of the stuff people might understand that Bauer makes?
Yeah, so it's evolved a lot. So our capabilities range from fuel stands to hydraulics, pneumatics, and then we have a line of wheel and brake equipment, support equipment, which is very different, but standard products. But if you think about a jet engine, after so many thousand hours of operation, it has to be broken down. Key components have to be taken off and tested. Again, for flow, pressure, temperature. Think about like a fuel control or a fuel pump, you know, similar to a carburetor on a lawnmower or on a car, but a lot bigger, and you certainly don't want that failing at 30,000 feet.
Yeah, that wouldn't be ideal.
No.
It's one thing for your lawnmower to break down in the middle of the backyard. It is quite something else for the engine to seize up at 30,000 feet.
Exactly.
And so, put simply, you guys make some of the products that help keep the engines in the air?
That's right, and we'll sell these test stands to like Delta Airlines or Hill Air Force Base, right? A lot of military applications, maybe Turkish Airlines. They'll use those in overhaul shops to overhaul those components.
And in terms of the business, what's the breakout, military versus commercial?
Well, it's interesting because right now it's about 70% military, 30% commercial. Now, that's a real good thing because that's kept us afloat during the whole pandemic.
Right.
So I'd like to say we planned it that way, but you know, looking back 2 years, that's kind of the book of business we were heading into. At any given time, it might be 50-50, it might be, you know, 70% commercial.
So it's pretty wide swings, and what sort of causes that? Just like kind of who's in the market for test and analysis equipment, or sort of what drives those big swings?
Yeah. It you know, there's no rhyme or reason really. It's whatever the requirements are at any given time, either on the military side or the commercial side. But it's all good. It's all good business.
It is all good. So it's a family business.
You know, it's been in and out of our family for over 40 years. So my dad worked for Bauer as chief engineer, had the opportunity to buy it about 10 years later. My brother, who's president and CEO of the company, has owned it outright for the last 20 years. And my nephew, Michael, so my brother is Lou, and then my nephew, Michael, is our VP of Global Aftermarket and Customer Support. So very much a family business.
Yeah, no doubt about that. You like that?
Oh, it's great. We get along great. We'll challenge each other. We never argue. We challenge each other, but we have a great working relationship. You bet.
Is it difficult to sort of manage? It sounds like you guys got some global sales going on. If you've got the director of global operations, is it hard to manage such far-flung business that goes all across the globe?
So I guess we're used to it, right? It's always been, we're probably in 75 different countries around the world, and it's always been a very international company. Actually, my nephew Michael lived in Singapore, just moved back about a year ago. So he lived over there for 2 years and supported that whole Southeast Asia market. So we have some manufacturing reps that cover different parts of the world, but our engineers, we have about 40 engineers out of about 100 employees, and they travel the world as well.
Really?
Yeah, which is pretty cool.
And what are they doing when they're traveling?
It could be sales application engineering, helping to close a deal and to understand the customer's requirements, but oftentimes it's to install, train, and commission a test stand that we ship to one of these customers.
Because someone has to know how to actually use the thing they bought.
Yeah, really complex equipment, electromechanical equipment.
Are a lot of the stuff you guys make sort of one-offs? Stuff that's maybe not one-off, like it's a unique snowflake, but is everything sort of like custom tailored to the application as opposed to sort of an off-the-shelf implementation?
Yeah. So I'll give you an example. So Lufthansa Airlines, German airline, we have a main fuel control test stand on the floor right now, final stages of factory acceptance. It has capabilities to test about 12 different fuel controls. So you can imagine an airline like that, their fleet is huge. They have all these different jet engines, and they have to be able to support.
And they don't want to buy 12 different test stands. They want to buy one test stand.
Yeah.
Sort of
and those fuel controls might range, they might be from the 1960s, 70s, all the way up to a fuel control that was designed 5 years ago.
I hadn't even thought of that. I was more thinking about the variety of engine sizes, right? Because they've got different planes that fly different ranges, but it hadn't even occurred to me that in addition to sort of engine sizing, you got to deal with engine technologies.
That's right. The level of automation from 20 years ago even to today is huge. Never mind something that, is 30, 40 years ago.
Huh.
Yeah.
How do you conquer those challenges?
Well, we have really smart engineers. So
always comes back to people.
Yeah, it is. But, we tap the brightest. We bring on a lot of younger engineers, and they work their way up in the company. We team them up with senior engineers who have been with Bauer. It's not unusual for one of our engineers to have been with the company 30, 40 years.
So, we're at the ACM trade show. Big part of the ACM trade show is to kind of generate interest. There's a career fair component that we're in right now to generate interest in the workforce. So let's dig into that a little bit. You got 40 engineers, you mentioned, about 40% of the business. What does the remaining part of the business look like? What are the sort of the jobs that are at Bauer? And then let's talk about how people get into them.
Yeah, so 40 engineers, MEs, EEs, software engineers. We have some mechanical designers that are part of that engineering group. Manufacturing, maybe about 35. Covers electricians, hydraulic mechanics, machinists, sheet metal technicians, so fabricators and welders. It's every discipline. So we build the test stands right from the ground up, and it requires every shop discipline you can think of.
So when you guys are looking at recruiting, what's sort of been your strategy to engage and sort of build the workforce for the future?
So on the engineering side, we tap into local colleges and universities. We've had tremendous success bringing on engineers who we get involved as interns. Some are interns. We have a very close relationship with the University of Hartford and their college, their CETA program, their STEM-related program. But we'll pull engineers in from UConn, from Quinnipiac, CCSU, really any college or university in the area. But it's been great to bring on an engineering intern, see if they're a fit for the organization, and then ideally bring them on full time.
How long have you been doing that sort of intern-based approach? It's really interesting. Just want a little bit of background. Want to kind of get your answer. Having worked with and known about law firms, my father was an attorney, so I saw that. I did some summer work there when I was a kid. I know accountants and accounting firms. and have seen them using sort of that summer intern model for a long time, right? Consultant firms do the same thing. Go to colleges, recruit sort of summer interns. Law firms, of course, do the same thing. It's pretty well known. Seems like something manufacturing hasn't embraced as much as one might think, but it sounds like you guys have embraced it. So how long have you been doing it? How'd you get started in it?
Probably for 10, 15 years, we've been bringing in interns, maybe longer. I think part of it was being really engaged with local colleges and universities. And I know Lou is on the board, for example, of University of Hartford, the School of Engineering. So it's developing those relationships. But we'll also work with some local tech schools. So Bristol Tech, some of the advanced manufacturing programs like at Tunxus, really good feed for our mechanics on the shop floor as well.
Yeah, I'm really happy you mentioned that. I mean, we were, we've had some folks on, from College of Technology, even earlier today. We've had people on from, the CTECs, the technical schools, community colleges. Connecticut's doing a lot, I think, in those areas. And it sounds like you've been able to take advantage of some of that. Yeah,
and we have such a highly skilled workforce, be it engineering or on the shop floor. So the SNUNTUC program, there's a lot of students here from SNUNTUC today. Yep. And they have a tremendous mechatronics program. Their advanced manufacturing program is one of the best we've seen, and it's a great training ground to be a shop worker at Bauer, to be one of our mechanics.
When you guys develop those relationships, whether it's with University of Hartford or any other higher education, just share with the audience, other businesses maybe thinking, how do you do it? What's sort of the strategy, or what's the staffing level? I don't know. I don't know. If I have a manufacturer and I say, wow, I'd love to sort of be able to develop some of those relationships and get some engineers. I don't know how to do it. How would you explain it? How would someone go about doing it?
So the best thing is to do things in person, right? So it's important for manufacturers, engineering firms to understand the capabilities within the schools, and then have the schools out to the factory, if you will, out to the businesses. So we bring students and faculty alike out to Bauer all the time. And because it's one thing to talk about it, it's one thing to go to a website and see it online, but it's a whole nother thing to come in person, talk to some of our engineers, and take a look at the equipment firsthand.
Yeah, and kind of open their eyes to what's possible, generate the interest, and then boom, light bulbs go off.
You bet. There's so many companies in Connecticut, you have no idea what's behind the wall, right? So once you get in there, it's eye-opening.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I noticed that you guys decided to sort of put a little bit of your money where your mouth is too on some of that. And there's been a building, I think, named after you guys, the Bauer Auletta building over at University of Hartford.
Yeah, it's actually a room. It's in their maker space, so it's a room. What we love about the University of Hartford engineering program is it's very hands-on. And our engineers at Bauer have to be hands-on too. It's not just design, but there's checkout on the shop floor and getting your hands dirty, if you will, on the test equipment. So we sponsored or donated some money, both the Auletta family and Bauer, to the University of Hartford, and we have a room dedicated after us in their new School of Engineering.
I love it. We show what we care about by where we spend our time and where we spend our money. So
you bet.
Clearly, the future and future employees looks like a really important thing to Bauer. I want to talk a little bit about ACM since we are here at the ACM trade show. Yeah. What's the Bauer involvement with ACM? How long has it been going on?
It's been going on for years. We have a great relationship with ACM. We've had our employees get involved with a lot of training programs. I can think of a few. Our frontline supervisory training, one of our shop supervisors went through that. It was tremendous. I personally got involved in a great executive strategic planning session through ACM in the DeLisa group maybe about a year ago. ACM is just great about letting employers know kind of what's going on in the industry in Connecticut. I got turned on to a great program sponsored by the New England Air Museum and Pratt Whitney, and it's to learn about Engines 101. Here I'm in the business, but this was taught by an engineering fellow, a senior fellow from Pratt Whitney, and just fascinating. So I wouldn't have heard about an opportunity like that if it wasn't for ACM.
It's really important, right?
It's so important. No, it's great. And The industry news, just staying current on regulatory, on what's going on with, I shouldn't even say it, but the whole vaccine, right, situation, or COVID protocols. I actually remember 2 years ago, year and a half ago, when the whole pandemic first started, I drove to Paul Murphy's house to get masks. He had a supply of masks that no one could get, right? So it's
who was the executive director of the ACM at
Paul
the time?
was, yeah. Jessica's doing a tremendous job.
No, she is.
now.
I just wanted to make sure. If anyone's like, well, who's Paul Murphy and what does he have to do? Yeah. But he's tremendous.
So great relationship with ACM over the years.
Yeah, no, it's so important. And I mean, you touched on a bunch of stuff. I mean, certainly industry information, certainly when, things like a pandemic or big things come up, having a trade group that understands your business is so critical. But you touched on some other things too, which I think are so important about the ACM, right? One is training opportunities. If we want to continue to excel, we need to continue to learn and develop. Certainly something that's near and dear to your heart.
Yep.
ACM helps do that.
Yep.
We need to be able to network with our, fellow aerospace manufacturers and learn best practices and new things, understand the customer base and where the industry is going. It's just really, it's an impressive organization.
It is, and it's these member companies, part of ACM, that share all the same challenges. That it's workforce, it's now supply chain, but it's great to be able to call on the different companies and just ask, what are you guys doing about this? What are you doing with lean? What are you doing with continuous improvement? Even we're getting ready to break ground tomorrow, actually, on a 30,000 square foot addition at Bauer. So more than doubling our manufacturing space. But I called on a company to pick their brain on putting on a building addition about a year ago. So it's that give and take.
Every little bit helps. Right?
You bet.
So when you're thinking about some of these challenges, you mentioned supply chain, so I just want to ask you about that for a second.
Yeah.
What are you guys seeing in terms of supply chain challenges, and how are you sort of mitigating those?
So it's largely electronics. We're getting things, be it from Germany, but they use chips, from Southeast Asia and whatnot. So it's a huge problem. I'm sure near and dear to your heart, right? So you know all about it.
Way too near for my taste. Yeah.
But things before that, used to be a 12-week delivery are a 26-week delivery. It's just crazy. We're dealing with it, right? And we're just keeping constant communications with our customers, telling them certain things are beyond our control.
Yeah. No, there's just pressure everywhere, and I think one of the challenges has sort of been a little bit of the run on the bank syndrome. I've just noticed people saying, oh, well, I'm going to need them, so I'm going to order more now to sort of stockpile for later.
Right.
And that is, I can't imagine, if I just, from just what I'm seeing, if that sort of is going broader in the market, it's gonna be challenging.
We're seeing that. We're even seeing lead time issues for our new building. Right, the pre-engineered metal building is not going to get delivered until April.
I know. From window shades to light switches, seems like everything
it's across
just
the board.
to the people to install it. And then just one last thing, Mark,
Sure.
just to button it up. When you're thinking about the workforce of the future, and sort of growing the business, you're putting on additions, or you're looking at growing. Any other thoughts about how to attract the next generation? Obviously, you're engaging them in the universities. You're giving them tours of the building. You're coming to the ACM trade show, all tremendous opportunities. Anything else out there that comes top of mind that people should be thinking about or you're hearing folks doing?
So it's all about how do you motivate people, right? How do you not only attract them, but retain them as well? So it's a good onboarding program. It's really solid training programs. It's keeping people engaged. It's being flexible with people. So be it, being flexible with hours, and just appreciating that people have a life outside of work too.
Yeah, giving them some good balance and a future to be proud of. I mean, those are things everyone really cares about.
You bet.
Well, Mark, thanks so much for coming on. Appreciate you spending the time today.
Ari, thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm really excited to have Susan Kasa on, president of Boulevard Machine and Gear. Susan, thank you so much for stopping by the booth today.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Listen, it's my pleasure. It's a Made in America podcast, on the road though we are, so I'm still going to start off with the same two questions we always ask Susan. What do you make, and why do you make it?
So we do machine product to customer supply drawings for the Tier 1 industry, the Boeings, the Hamiltons, General Dynamics, machining of complex product that goes into planes, space vehicles, A large
Some really
combination
cool
of things.
stuff.
Cool stuff.
That's awesome. And why do you do it?
We do it because our employees enjoy the challenge, staying ahead of the curve, bringing the young people in to make exciting, challenging things.
Yeah, well, listen, that's a great reason why, you know what I mean? To do something that's really meaningful. Not everybody gets to say they made something that goes into outer space, right?
Yes, and a lot of times we're not privy to know exactly where the parts are going, but when you do know where they're going, it makes it even more exciting.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. So I want to dig into a little bit of the history, Susan. I think it's kind of interesting. We're always talking to people about getting into the manufacturing industry and what an exciting career opportunity it is and how much growth there is and how, impactful those careers can be. And you sort of came to it, I think, in a little bit of an interesting way. Maybe you could tell the audience, how did you get into manufacturing?
Someone came along by accident, someone that I had known who had to get out of the business, and I had been working for a large MBE doing PR, making great contacts with large companies, and I knew what his customer base was, and I'm like, I can grow this. I can really do this. So it was exciting to work with the big OEMs.
So you just decided, hey, I see a good business, I see an opportunity, I'm just going to buy it and see what happens.
Absolutely.
And so that's how you came to be the president and owner of Boulevard Machining Gear?
I did, and I really worked my way up from the bottom to the top. I felt that I really needed to learn the business right down to buying items in the beginning so I could be a woman in a man's world and get their respect.
Did you actually do machining up back? So I know you've been in now, so just real quick to set the tone with the audience. You bought Boulevard in 2006, right?
Correct.
So it's been about 15 years. It sounds like you've done a lot of stuff in the business. You were ordering parts. Did you machine parts?
I have not machined parts,
Okay.
but I am very involved in the day-to-day operations. I'm talking to my machinists, my programmers, my engineers on a day-to-day basis. I like to see what they're doing. Are they having any issues? Just the collaboration and the teamwork is excellent, and that allows customers to know that I'm involved.
So coming from a background in PR, which, listen, you do need public relations, certainly need marketing and sales in any business, manufacturing no exception. But what did you find some of the things that were new and exciting that you had to learn in manufacturing, and what were some of the interesting challenges you had to overcome to kind of be successful in this space?
So the complexity, the technical specifications on drawings, understanding all that so I could have real conversations with my customers and they knew that I knew what was going on. So just really learning that aspect, but customers really respect an owner that's involved in the day-to-day operations.
Yeah, and did you find, when you got into it, did you find that it was just what you expected, more exciting, more challenging, all the above?
It's all of the above. Being a small owner in this type of industry is just very demanding a lot of times, but that's what comes with being an entrepreneur. It's a passion, so you do what it takes to come to a successful run.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And let's talk a little bit about what brings you here to the ACM Trade Show. So we're here at Aerospace Alley, the ACM Trade Show. We're still in the early stages, right? We're in the sort of student section, getting everyone interested in what career opportunities they are. What brought you to this show?
So I do sit on the board for the ACM. It's fairly new, but I've also been very involved. We're a Springfield company. We're one of the few that belongs here to the Connecticut ACM. But we've been very involved in the vocational technical schools in our local area. I sit on many of the advisory boards because these students are our future. We've got the generation gap, and we've got the baby boomers retiring. We're really trying to get through to even the parents as far down as grade school to educate them. We're not your grandfather's shop that was oily and dirty. You can pretty much eat off the floor in the newer shops. The machines are very complex and technical. These kids can make a great wage and be an integral part of the community. They don't necessarily have to have a college degree with 6 figures of debt, and they can be entrepreneurs.
Is that what you've been doing when you engage with the community colleges in your area, trying to help people see that?
Absolutely. Getting those parents engaged and letting these kids pick these vocational trades because they're so necessary.
The parents are key?
They are, because there's the stigma that machine shops are old and dirty. And that just isn't what we are.
Where do you think that stigma comes from?
Just the blue collar, the old, what people don't realize is many of these shops are not, there is no oil in our building. We're all water-based. Our coolants are water-based. Our machines are collecting the mist. The environment is climate controlled, like a clean room. So educating them on all of those things so that they see what a bright future their kids can really have in this trade.
How important is investing in technology and having that type of work environment? How important is that to the success of Boulevard?
Absolutely crucial, because if we don't give our employees state of the art, it makes it harder to make an item. We have to be competitive in this industry. So from software, whether it be SolidWorks, JobBoss, Mastercam, however they're preparing the programs, we stay on the cutting edge and always stay current with everything that we're using, as well as cutting tools and machines. Things change drastically from year to year. It's a constant reinvestment, and when you give that cutting edge tool to the machinist or by machines, we're making things much faster. So it's exciting. It's like, a kid in a toy store. These machinists love the big fancy new machines when they come in.
What do people get to do? What are some of the job openings, some of the opportunities that Boulevard has or could offer some people who might be out there looking to get into manufacturing?
So we are significantly growing. In about a year and a half ago, we moved to a state-of-the-art facility in Westfield. We have been continually growing even through the pandemic. Outer space is very big for us with SpaceX and Blue Origin, including Utah, because we, as the U.S., are finally going to space in 2024, and we've not done that in years.
Long time, yeah.
Long time. So we are really engaging the younger people. I've had a lot of the baby boomers starting to retire, the tribal knowledge. It's important that these younger people get that tribal knowledge from those machinists before they leave us. So we have been hiring across the board, from process engineers, programmers, CMM programmers in our quality inspection department, machinists on the floor. When I acquired the company, we've already doubled our employees, and we're still growing. So we are looking for young people, giving them a bright, fancy new facility that's shiny, also encourages them to come aboard, and most importantly, word of mouth.
How do you find, one thing you mentioned before, which a lot of manufacturers talk about, is sort of transmitting that tribal knowledge, right? I mean, people that have been there for 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, they've got information and some know-how that needs to be transferred on. Have they been embracing the new generation? Do you feel like there's a good opportunity? Is there openness to training the new people that are coming in?
It really varies, but for the most part, as these guys get a little older and know that they're moving on, they really do open up. They've worked with metals their entire life, and a lot of times kids will come in and they need to know how to square up a block. They need to know how the metal's going to react. And with all the collaboration that's done in our particular building and the teamwork, it really allows them to engage and really go back and forth on what they're doing. And it is really important to get that tribal knowledge from these guys before they leave.
How do you think about fostering that teamwork and helping facilitate that communication? Because transferring that knowledge is so important. Is there strategies that you've used, Susan, in the past, or ways you think to encourage that collaboration inside the walls of your business?
So I believe in teamwork and collaboration. I do not believe in micromanaging. People are brought in to do their jobs, and when you allow them to do those jobs the right way, it does happen. Yes, there's guidance, but you can't micromanage and grow a company.
Yeah, there's no question about that. Speaking of collaboration, I know we're going to run out of time and get back to the show, but when you think about collaboration, how does the Aerospace Component Manufacturers Group, the ACM, how does that fit into your context of collaboration, thinking about collaborating outside the walls of the business?
The ACM has been phenomenal with their executive directors, with the variety of meetings that they put together, from business development to newer techniques in manufacturing. They're extremely beneficial to us as small companies, because they're sharing all the information, whether it be political and from the government, especially through this pandemic. They were very crucial in keeping us up to speed on what was going on and what was being expected from us. And they continue to do that. They just have such a large pull from the big OEMs to the very small, so it allows us to really meet more people than we would otherwise.
And have you found the membership been really open and sharing with you?
Absolutely. The days of being competitors, I think, has gone out the window. Everybody, there's a much better camaraderie amongst the group, and you can pick up the phone and talk to anybody, and they're more than willing to share their insight.
What do you see for the future of Boulevard Machining Gear?
I see a lot of great things happening. I'm busy growing a young management team to get this company to a whole new level, and we're excited as to where it's going to go.
Yeah, I'm excited for you too, Susan. Look forward to keeping in touch. Enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you.
Hey, coming at you with another guest on the ACM Trade Show in Hartford, Connecticut, Nick Zandonella, General Manager of Leggett and Platt in Middletown. Hey, Nick, man, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, your reputation precedes you. Excited to kind of get you on for a little chit chat. Know some of your mentors, I'll say. Been previous guests on the podcast. It's great having you on. Before we get in, man, just want to start off with standard Made in America questions. What do you make, and why do you make it?
Absolutely. So we make mostly tube assemblies for aerospace application. We also have automotive and marine applications as well. Mostly titanium, stainless steel, nickel, all for fluid conveyance activity. And we've been doing that long before I was there. And Christy Matima before me, the family had started the business. And so we got bought out by Leggett, and Leggett and Platt has been a great partner for us, working to try and help grow the business, get us into different areas and different customers we've been before. And kind of the why do we do it? When they first started this, there was a real need for tube manufacturers in the U.S., and we continued to build and grow and develop that, and worked really hard to be a great partner for our customers and try and work on new creative solutions for them.
That's great. Tell us, the audience who doesn't really know, like, what is this tubing? You know, talk about Leggett and Platt Aerospace. I'm not sure everyone knows what tubes do in aerospace. So, you know, for those that don't know, educate.
Yeah, great question. So a lot of times you'll see it if you ever see a jet engine exposed, it's kind of the tubes that wrap around the engine. You're transporting air, fluid, whether that be oil, hydraulic fluid. And so it basically provides kind of the lifeblood. It's like the arteries of a jet engine.
So a really important component of the jet engine, I would imagine.
We think it's very important. Sometimes the operators or the people who are assembling the engine tend to look at it as kind of throwaway material. But for us,
does the engine work without it?
No.
Well, then I'd say it's pretty important.
Pretty important.
Yeah, very nice. So talk a little bit about yourself, Nick. I mean, how long you been in the manufacturing industry?
So I've been in aerospace for about 16 years now. I started with Pratt Whitney. I got a great opportunity with them to work in their aftermarket side and migrate kind of from the engineering side into operations, which was awesome. They sent me all over the world to different sites and different facilities. I helped spent months up in Canada helping them set up their Mac facility and then their potting center inside of Bombardier. And after spending just a short 8 years there, I had the opportunity to go work with Brian Montanari at Abco Industries. Brian gave me a great opportunity to help run operations for about 5.5 years, and then after that progressed to Leggett, and so I've been working in tubing ever since.
Yeah, a lot of the people in the Connecticut ecosystem probably still refer to Leggett as Pegasus,
yep,
which was the Dipentimo company. So just since we're here, what do you think about the ACM Trade Show this year?
It looks fantastic. It's nice to see everybody back out again. This morning they had a lot of people here, so I was kind of concerned that they weren't going to let a lot of the students come out and interact, and I'm glad the schools did that. I mean, it's vital to our success and being able to get people young who are energized about aerospace activity and really get into the industry early, so that they have the opportunity to see and hear what we do and
get involved in a great career.
Finding good talent is really tough.
No doubt.
Yeah.
When you think about why it's worth time for like the general manager of an important business, important part of the Leggett family right here in Connecticut. When you think about why it's important for you to be here, how do you think about that? Why is it important for the GM to be up here?
I think it's important to show that you're concerned about where we get our talent from and who they're going to be, and that there's a commitment to trying to develop individuals. We work really hard we've always tried to be a company that hires for attitude over aptitude, because the attitude is hard to find. The talent and ability is something that needs to be learned. And so you can teach students a lot about what they're going to do, but then they're going to customize a lot of that activity to what you do inside your business.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So when you guys are here, how did you feel about like engaging with the students when they were coming around? What did you guys do? Were you at the booth the whole time?
I came in at the tail end of it.
Okay.
But we had our HR team here and working really hard to try and, a lot of it is putting stuff out that's going to catch their eye and make them interested in potentially working in manufacturing, tube manufacturing. We're always looking for more welders. Welders seem to be one of the hardest things for us to get our hands on. So.
What's one of the most surprising things you think people think about or don't think about when they think about sort of tube manufacturing, and you tell them what it's actually like versus what they think it's like?
When we tell people about tube manufacturing, I think people think about the stainless steel straws they put in their drinks. Right? But overall,
wait, so that's not it.
That's not
that's not it at all.
That's
all
not
right.
what we're making. But what we are trying to provide is a whole solution. So it's not just bending tube, but it's also adding on features and components, contouring. So it's a lot of different stuff and we make a lot of the machine components that we put into our own product. So there's more than just the bending tube. It's also some of the machine components that we're doing too. So trying to find machinists is also one of our challenges.
Yeah, get it down there. What's it like working for such a big company? I don't actually know how many of the listeners even know how big Leggett Platt is, but
yeah.
it's big. I mean,
So Leggett's a Fortune 1000 company.
Yep.
They have about 27,000 employees worldwide, and we're a very small piece of that puzzle.
We got about 100 down in Middletown?
We got about 100 employees, and
Yep.
it's been great. They allow us to operate pretty autonomously. They support us and help us grow, and it's nice having a centralized sales team that helps feed work into the business. And it's also nice having some of those centralized features that, if you're a small company, you're doing your own accounting, you're going outside and find somebody. We have those resources here. We can go, marketing group that helps us with marketing. So it gets our name out there a lot more than it ever would have before.
Yeah, and I mean, you went from sort of Pratt, so you sort of had that big business
Yep.
experience. Then you went to Habco, not a big business, more small business experience. Now you're sort of at Leggett, but in Middletown, sort of like a little bit of best of both worlds.
It is the best of both worlds. They allow us to operate like a small company. If you've ever worked for a small company, there's things that are great about working for the small company and having that family feel. Wearing a lot of different hats, knowing there's going to be a lot of gray space, you got to move across those different areas. Those are really great things to.
You spend a lot of time personally getting engaged in ACM events outside of the Aerospace Alley Tradeshow?
I try and attend as often as I possibly can.
Yeah. And why is that? Why do you think that's important?
Because I think it promotes exactly what fundamentally what you're trying to get when you're developing aerospace inside of Connecticut. You got a lot of companies we work with. These are our partners. That having close proximity to the people you see, you can't throw a stone without seeing somebody you're currently working with right now. You're for outside service or you're buying components from. I mean that's what I'll be doing later this afternoon is going around talking to the people who are helping us make us successful. So
yeah, it's crazy, man. One of the things that's always so fascinating to me is you go to a lot of trade shows and the sales team is there, someone else is there. You go around the ACM trade show, there's owners everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, the people that run these shops around. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's great relationship building. Every now and again, last year we were here, we got 3 new suppliers out of the effort. It gives them a chance to showcase some of the features that are things that they're doing now, whether they've gone out and tried new capabilities. That type of stuff is an opportunity to see it firsthand here that you may not get off of looking at a website or just a phone call to somebody. So
yeah, that physical contact, being in a room with someone, that stuff does actually matter. Feels like for the last year and a half we've been saying maybe it doesn't matter, but it seems like it does really matter.
It really does.
There's something interesting, Nick, about your story, and hopefully one day we'll get you on a full podcast episode so we can really kind of investigate it. But we talk a lot about how manufacturing is not just a job, it's a career.
Yeah.
And when I look back at your career, that really embodies that, right? Sort of had an opportunity as an engineer and sort of here you are as a general manager. And I just wonder if you reflect on that a little bit. Anything you could share to people out there who maybe are thinking about getting into manufacturing or just got it and want to know, how to follow in your footsteps.
That's a great question. The thing I would probably suggest is there's no shortage of need for people who want to work hard. And I think just working and wanting to learn more, that real attitude of always willing to take on a little bit more because you'll learn from every step and every failure you make, as long as you can get over it quickly. Your failures don't define you, your successes do, but your failures you're going to fail 3 or 4 times, 5 times more than you're going to succeed.
That's right.
And that's really what it comes down to, is just learning quickly from your failures, and being willing to take on things knowing that you're probably going to fail the first time, and before you get there.
It's a scary proposition for some engineers. You know what I mean? That whole engineers really buying into that sort of measure twice, cut once approach, right? Yeah. Avoid failure at all costs, especially aerospace engineers. Right? Failures cost lives. So that's a weird juxtaposition, no?
It is, except for the fact that you think of it in the aerospace industry in particular, all of the major quantum leaps that come from failing, right?
Yeah.
So fail fast forward, do it small, so you're not doing it big. That's probably the best advice I can give.
Fail on the test stand.
That's right.
Is that
exactly.
what we're saying? Not in the air. when you had to make the jump from an individual contributor to somebody that sort of, well, I guess I'll maybe first ask the question: what do you think are the differences between where you were sort of in engineering and then where you are now in a general manager? What are the different skill sets that you rely on, or how do you think about that differently, right? And I imagine it uses totally different, muscles, as it were.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is letting go. So you have to let go of the things before you could control a lot of the things that were happening, the outcomes, and now you're putting a lot of trust in the people that you hire and that support you. And I think that's how real growth inside of the total company comes as a whole, right? So the more you allow your employees to make decisions, whether they be the right decision at first, they don't pan out, or they do pan out, that's probably the biggest challenge, is transitioning from I did it all myself before, and now I have to let go of all of it and let other people help make critical decisions and involve them over and over again in the process.
Is that a tough transition?
It's been easier than I expected.
Really?
Yeah.
How did you, you just started doing it and it felt right? Did you first start doing it and be like, feels weird, and then had to course correct?
You feel naked at first. But we've been pretty fortunate. I mean, this transition happened during, transition to this role during COVID. So we were already at the point where we had lost some people prior to COVID coming out. We weren't able to backfill them. We're kind of in a bare bones situation to begin with. So people are already covering a lot. So allowing people to make those decisions was a little bit easier for me in this role. I can imagine that when you're in the 2019 time frame, when you're flat out trying to find talent all over the place, and it feels like there's a million balls being juggled at one time, that it's a little more difficult. I think I was a little more fortunate than some.
Wow, so COVID just came right at the right time for Nick's career. So what are your thoughts for what you're looking to cover the rest of the afternoon at the trade show? We're just sort of kicking off post-lunch. We had a nice, interesting kind of industry, big picture talk. Yeah. Just wonder, what are your thoughts about the afternoon? What are you trying to accomplish?
I'd like to be able to get a feel for, all the talk during lunch was all about cost reduction on the Airbus side, and Boeing's not far behind. And so our major customers are GE, Rolls-Royce. We do a bunch of work for Pratt and other Raytheon divisions. And a lot of people are looking for, there's a lot of capacity in the supply chain. So now they're looking for, hey, how can we, cost seems to be the big driver for a lot of our customers now, and the whole quality and on-time delivery aspect I don't want to say they've dropped it, but it seems like cost has now moved more to the forefront of the concern, with only 40%, only 60% of the aerospace industry recovering from where it was in 2019.
So what are you thinking about that? You're looking to sort of bounce some ideas around, find out what other folks are thinking about.
I think right now more than anything, if you're not a company in Connecticut or even in the U.S. that's not trying to reinvigorate your lean initiatives, you're going to find yourself in the dust in 5 years.
Yeah, time to look at ways to cut costs out of the process.
Yep.
Time
to look at ways to cut waste out of your entire process. Work with your supply base, understand their issues they're having from a scrap perspective. We're working really hard with a lot of, on the tube side, how do we get tube made to the length that we need it to, so that our customers are getting, they're not eating the scrap throughout the entire process, and that more than anything, we're trying to get our sub-tier suppliers to know that we want them to manufacture in a way that's going to help us all be competitive when we're trying to accomplish these goals.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And plus, it's a little bit of a double squeeze, right? Because you've got price concessions, people looking for price concessions. And I don't know about you, but from what I'm hearing, materials prices and labor prices aren't going down.
Yeah, it is. And I think what was said today was really important, is that as you're looking at new LTAs and new agreements, we're doing the same thing, looking to make sure we're protecting ourselves from a price escalation perspective. And you usually can get 1 or 2 years of fixed pricing, but in the out years, we got to do everything we can to try and share the burden with the OEMs.
You think OEMs are open to that?
It depends on the OEMs. Some are a little more flexible than others, but I think the same market conditions exist for them, and I think there is a level sympathy and making sure that they don't damage the relationships that they've worked so hard. I mean, the other side of the discussion today was all about rate increase. So you see rate increase across the board. The idea of even talking about Airbus being at rate 75 is in the next 3 years is an astonishing increase.
Yeah, it's a really interesting juxtaposition, right? I mean, on the one hand, everyone's saying it's coming roaring back even faster, faster than we thought. It might surpass, where it was. Then we're looking for price concessions, and I think that doesn't sort of, you don't want to obfuscate the fact that at the end of the day, right, in all things, there's three things, right? There's quality, speed, and price, and you only get to have two.
Yeah, pick two.
So if you want to pull the price lever, then you got to give up on speed or quality, and aerospace usually not the place you want to give up on quality.
No.
Yeah, bad things happen when we give up on quality. Well, Nick, it's been awesome having you on. Look forward to having you on a longer episode. But I did get a tip pre-show, and I wanted to ask you about this. Somehow there's some connection between you and girls basketball.
I'd say women's basketball.
Women's basketball. Yes, I apologize.
Yeah, so
women's basketball.
So in college, I played on the practice squad for the Villanova women's team.
There you go.
That was my.
You couldn't make the starting lineup, but the practice squad, you were all over it.
All over it.
How'd you play?
I'd say well.
You'd say well. Yeah. You really helped lift the. What's the point of being on the
2004? They beat UConn in the Big East championship, and that was my 15 minutes of fame right there.
And you were part of the practice squad that helped prepare them for the UConn women's team to beat them. That's the story.
That's the story. I'm sticking to it.
There we go. Well, Nick, I don't know if that's going to ingratiate you in the hearts of UConn Huskies fans everywhere.
Probably not.
Probably not, but still definitely an interesting story. Listen, man, thanks a lot for coming on, and we'll look forward to talking to you again.
Thank you for the time. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct, a Compass MSP company.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a community where we can learn and grow together. Your input, feedback, and engagement is critical to making that happen. Please do comment, like, and subscribe so more and more people can hear what we're doing and join our community of growth and success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you again soon.